Welcome to Midnight Cry. I'm your host, Terry Baldwin, and we have with us in the studio again, Dr. Daniel Shayesteh. Thank you, Daniel, for coming in.
Good to be with you here again. Thank you.
Daniel, our subject tonight is, who is Allah? Now, this is an important subject, and I'm very much looking forward to discussing this with you and hearing what you have to say. So, Daniel, are Muslims and Christians following the same God?
In word, many of them believe it's the same God. When you speak generally, rank and file Muslims, and even rank and file Christians or rank and file Buddhists, all religious people saying that we are following the same God. But when you read their textbook, you know, when you read the Quran, when you read the Bible, when you read Vedas for Hindus, you see the gods have different characteristics, different attributes, and they are not all the same. They have very much fundamental differences with each other, which you cannot doctrinally and philosophically, and then it comes to socially, politically, and ethically, you believe that's not the same God.
So in the case of Christianity, say, and Islam, what are the sources that we should be looking at to make up our mind about whether we follow the same God?
I generally rely on the Quran. I mean, we know that there are some, if you want to know who Allah is, Quran is the major source for Islam, because they believe that's the first-hand word of Allah inspired in Muhammad. And his word, when you want to judge someone, to understand who the person is, you listen to the words of that person personally. And so the Quran for Islam is the major source. However, Quranic doctrine is very closely connected to Hadith and the life story of Muhammad, the words Muhammad said, and the leaders said, and the way Muhammad lived is so important, you use them. But so often, when I speak to Muslims, they say, I don't believe in, Hadith being a holy book. I believe in Quran. So I'd rather, in my conversation, rely on the Quran. And it is the same for Christians and Jews. If they want to speak about their God, that's the Bible. You refer to the Bible. Bible is the major reference, as it is in all other beliefs. You see, my encouragement really to people who want to know about a belief and religion, they need to really go to the major sources. Even in communism is the same. Even they do not believe in God. If you want to know about communism, atheism, you have to go to the life of those people and to the books the founders of belief said, like Karl and Engels, the fathers of communism. You have to read their words and to understand that. So the major source is the major book, is the major manifesto of that belief, or the holy book of that belief. In Islamic cases, Quran, and in Christianity is the Bible.
So why is it important to know the God or the root of a belief system, do you think?
Terry, it's so important. It's so, because our belief shapes our lives. It's from the root we get our food. As you see in a tree, in a plant, the root is supplying the branches and the whole body and leaves. It is the same in religion. The root supplies your social values, your social relationship, your political, economic, and ethical relationship. So that's why it's so much important. And people are just living side by side without knowing each other. And if really that lack of knowledge is not solved, it's going to create problem in the society. And a lot of clashes, different beliefs are going one day to clash with each other. Now we see in the world now, there is a really clash between Islam and Christian ethic, and also between Islam and other religions. There are some people who strongly believe that all other beliefs must be destroyed and only Islam should dominate. So we need to know really whether it is from the Quran or it is just from a bunch of people, some people call them so-called high people hijackers of Islam, they have hijacked Islam. So it's important. You know, in a family, Terry, is important too. You know,
Yes,
a husband
that's right.
and wife
Yep.
to know each other, to know their cultures, they are coming from different backgrounds, how to deal with different culture. It's so important for us really to know the root of our beliefs, and that also helps us, you know, just simply I say to you, there is one God in the universe. One God should have really one path for people, one way for people. But if you read the Quran, you see it's a different way, Bible different way,
I've noticed that.
with us different way, Terry. How can people go to, you know, a variety of ways in one time? It's impossible. If you and I are neighbors with each other, and we interact with each other socially and politically, we need to know the root of our beliefs and see which one really bring us to peaceful relationship, to kind and loving relationship, you know, to respect each other, you know, each other's dignity. So it's so important really for us to know. And also I say to you, God is the source of knowledge. God really loves His people to know. He loves us to know Him, not to follow Him
Yes.
blindly. So it's vital for us to know the root of religion. And I was fascinated for the first time reading the Gospel. I saw Gospel is encouraging people to understand. You know, Apostle Paul, the apostle of Jesus Christ, he says, if the root is holy, so are the branches. You see, he's speaking about the root. You can make it, you know, different sentences from this. If the root is not holy, so are the branches. If God is not holy, so are the branches, so are the followers. If God is not just, if God is not truthful, God is not righteous, so are the branches. You see how is that affecting people's lives? So it's so vital for us to know our root and the root of other beliefs, to help people to discover the root which is truthful, and that root can be attributed to the true God.
Yes, and here's the question, Daniel. Is there a difference between the Allah or the God of Islam and the God of the Christians? And if there is, or if there are, what are those differences?
Absolutely there is, you know, philosophically, doctrinally, socially, politically, morally, absolute difference there, Terry. I give you example of philosophy. For example, this is not that harsh for people to understand. It's a simple thing. God in Islam is impersonal. In other words, He doesn't have any personality. He doesn't reveal Himself. And that's why Muhammad never saw his God. He even said that there is a curtain between him and God. God never shows Himself to other people. So generally speaking, Islamic doctrine is borrowed from Greek philosophy. It's an impersonal God. In other words, this God does not reveal Himself. If God does not reveal Himself, then how can He create? Because creation requires touching. Creation requires image. Creation requires inspiration. You see, all these words I'm speaking to you can be attributed only to the personal God. Among all gods, among all religions, only the God of the Bible is personal. He reveals Himself, so you can have personal relationship with Him. You, as a personal being, only can have personal relationship with the personal God. You see how it makes difference really? The God of Islam never revealed Himself to Muhammad, never revealed Himself to Muslims. So therefore, that's why Muslims do not have personal relationship with God. In other words, they are not able to say, hey, I am with God now, I am saved. They cannot say I am saved now. They do not have that confidence whether to go to heaven or hell. They do not know, because they are not able to say they are united with God absolutely and perfectly. And even Muhammad said he didn't know about his future. And so this, you see the great difference here philosophically. You can stop me anytime you want, but there are differences in doctrine too. You know, doctrine, you look at the Quran, Quran says Allah is the creator of misfortune and disaster.
Yes, I've noticed that. That was always a problem to me.
From eternity, He designed, Quran chapter 57, verse 22 says, He designs misfortune for humanity's soul and for the world. You imagine, Terry, your best friend is designing disaster for you.
That's right, because you do get the picture from the Quran that it's not just something that He allows to happen, but He's actively wants this to happen. He desires it to happen, these negative things in a person's life and in people's lives. I get that picture when I read the Quran, actually. That was always a problem to me.
Absolutely. Where is this coming from? People ask me, where is this coming from? This is a pagan belief. You see, the characteristic of Allah is a pagan. Pagan believes that everything comes from God, good and bad, evil and disaster. That's what Quran says. In Quran says, Allah says, I created mankind in toil and trouble. You imagine you create toil and trouble for your children. What will you get from them? It's toil and trouble. So you see, doctrinally, it's so different. Quran says, Allah is the inspirer of sin and debauchery in humankind.
I've read that.
This is shocking. This is doctrinally doesn't make sense for the true God. True God is the just and holy God. Holy God cannot create sin, cannot inspire sin, because philosophically speaking, there is no essence of sin in His nature. He is fully separated from sin. He is fully away from sin. How can He attribute sin to God? Now, if God is the creator and inspirer of sin, then what kind of rights He have to blame people for sinning? People can simply say to Him, Sir, Your Majesty, you were not able to avoid creating your sin. How can I do that as a humankind? Or Quran says in chapter 8, verse 30, Allah is the best of deceivers.
This is another thing that was a problem to me when I was reading the Quran.
This is shocking.
Yes.
This is shocking.
Yeah.
Allah, you know, you cannot escape from the deception of Allah, Quran says. Or Quran encourages Muslims.
Isn't it one of the names of Allah too, that it's He who leads astray?
Absolutely. Who leads astray. That's in the Quran, chapter 4. And so this is shocking. If Quran is encouraging people to use convenient lying. A God, a spiritual God who is the source of absolute justice, encourages people to lie. You see, these are strange to the pages of the Bible. You see, this is why we are saying that different. Now, socially, this is a simple question. If your God is the source of deception, and He is your leader, what will you be?
Well, if you're going to be faithful, you're going to follow Him. You're going to follow His example.
Absolutely. If He has created sin, that sin is going to affect every aspect of your life. And that's why we see, unfortunately, Islamic doctrine supports, you know, taqiyya, holy deception, or legitimate lying or deception. That's shocking to the God of the Bible. So that's why we are saying that that is so different. The God there is so different to the God of the Bible. People generally believe that there is one God. That's right. But really you want to follow the true God, you have to follow the God of the Bible, who never created sin, never designed sin. He is not a deceiver. He doesn't encourage people to lie. He says lying is lying to enemy or to friend. That's lying. If you lie, you're separated from me. I cannot be with you because I don't need lying people. My kingdom doesn't have any place for lying.
You know, Daniel, you grew up as a Muslim. I grew up as an atheist for the first 21 years of my life. And I want to tell you that the motivation for me to come to God on His terms eventually was the fact that I started to see through people who represented Him, Christians who represented Him that I knew, I started to see what He was like. And I couldn't help, even though I wanted to be the boss of my own life, you know, I wanted to be my own God really, I was going in the wrong direction in life, but I couldn't help but to admire the character of God, the things that I heard about Him, and the example that I saw in the people that I knew that were following Him. You know, I would have been dishonest with myself if I would have been trying to attribute to that God that I was seeing through other people something negative, something bad. I was won over by the type of God that the Christians had. But I can tell you now, honestly, if in 1975, at the age of 21, and being an atheist, if I would have been presented with the character that I've seen since my research into Islam and since reading the Quran, if I had been confronted with that picture, I would have never have left being an atheist. I would have stayed as an atheist. What attraction would I have found in what I saw in the Quran eventually, the things that you're speaking about, deception and lying, that wasn't going to attract me. I was a deceiver anyway. I was a liar. And I wanted to be rescued from that. And certainly I'm not going to be expecting a rescue from a being that examples those very things that I was struggling with. You know?
Terry, you're so right. You were an atheist. And when I came, you know, before I came to Christ, I was a Muslim. Honestly, I'm saying to you, I was tired of deception. I was tired of being manipulated and manipulating other people. You know, especially it created chaos in my family. And when I discovered Christ, and that word came to my mouth, enough is enough. I'm going to divorce all these things from my life and be a light for Christ. I don't need to have this deception anymore in my family. I have to love my family. I have to have a loving relationship with my family and be really free of those things. It is the same in everywhere. If you do not have really Christ in your life, you're right. Christ is the example for us really.
You know, in what you're saying, these negative aspects of Allah, of the Quran, Allah of Islam, if they're there in truth, which they are, it's plain to see. Anybody can pick up a Quran and with a little bit of effort read it. It's in English, if your English is your first language. If that's so, if there's clearly these negative aspects of Allah's character there, what is your opinion on why does the Quran, why does Muhammad, why did he attribute these characteristics that are so negative to us to Allah?
He wanted to please people, unfortunately. That's what we understand from the trend of his journey in Islam toward the end, you know, toward the last moment of his life. What happened is, in the first 13 years he was in, Mecca, and he really didn't encourage people to do this kind of things. But after he moved from Mecca to Medina and took refuge in a tribe, that tribe unfortunately was caught in some of the Bedouin culture that lying and deceiving was okay, and especially that was a tribe, its major job was looting caravans. You imagine if you loot a nation, you need deception, you need lying, you need others. And unfortunately he started then after that to please his own, the tribe he has taken refuge. It's, deception and lying in God's relationship, in the true God, true relationship with the true God doesn't work. If a person is using that, absolutely it is to please his own fleshly desire, and also the fleshly desire of other people in order to have a temporary peaceful relationship. Other than that, you cannot, But the sad thing is this: the Islamic world are not aware of this, unfortunately. They do not dig into it. They are not allowed to dig, to go into the depths of this and say, what is this? Why should an holy God really sanction lying and deception? This cannot make sense. This cannot be the true God. And then just undress themselves from the spirit of Allah and just leave it and go somewhere else. This is what our goal is, really, to help them as much as we can.
So in your experience, your personal experience, was it a great part, the aspect of Islam where Allah, when you look at him, through the writings of Islam, especially the Quran, and you see his character and his nature, was this a larger part of the reason that you left Islam eventually? Or?
I did, Terry. When I was a Muslim, unfortunately, I was not awakened to this serious problem because I was living inside that circle. I was not that much questioning.
Did thoughts ever creep into your mind, like when you were, say, prior to the revolution in 1979 in Iran? Did you ever have thoughts questioning about Allah, like wondering why this was so? You'd hear something about his nature and you would think in your mind, how can that be? Did you ever have those thoughts?
Absolutely, I did. And that many Muslims do that. Actually, there is a teaching in Islam, you may doubt it, but don't stay there. One of the things really shocked me was this. In Islamic doctrine, and you read important, commentaries, they call ladies mute animal. Your wife is a mute animal. Muhammad gives instruction about prayers. He equalizes women with animals. If you're praying, and if a woman is not far enough from you, or a dog or an ass, your prayer is not accepted. Now, that was in my question. I have 3 girls, as a result of my marriage. And I was doubting that. I was saying that question in my mind. Look, I am a humankind in Allah's eyes. My wife is not that much. I have relationship with my wife. We have 3 children. They are girls. So in other words, I am producing animal or less human. The doubt was there. But because I didn't know the graceful of Jesus' words, I didn't know any other role model or example really to compare that with. But when I came really, and the door was open for me, and I had the opportunity to read the gospel, I was really shocked and humbled, and even one day I cried like a baby to the embarrassing things it was in my life really. I was an educated person, even I didn't think that this couldn't be attributed to the true God. That if Allah, the God of Islam, is speaking about that, he cannot be the true God.
So in the light of all that you've said, do you find that this philosophical discussion and speaking about who is Allah, what he's like, what are his character traits, what are his attributes, is this profitable when you're discussing Islam with with Muslims?
Absolutely, Terry. I have got tearful experiences with Muslims. I have got a TV show. I'm speaking to Muslim bird and mainly to Persians. Terry, we had amazing testimonies. One young boy called the TV station and he was crying, over 30. He said, for nearly 3 decades I have prayed to Allah. He doesn't understand my language. I do not understand his language, because you cannot talk to Allah in English or in your mother language. Yes. You have to speak in Arabic. And Iranians do not know Arabic really, just a memorize quick. He cried to me, Terry. He said, it was Christmas time. He said, I like your God. Is this a good time for me to give my heart to Jesus? Really, it's affecting people in a mighty way.
Yes, I can see that because logic is in the heart of every human being. It doesn't matter where, whether it's the Muslim, whether it's the Christian, the Jew, whether it's the atheist even. And it doesn't matter what country you come from, what tribe you come from. Absolutely. There is a logic in your life, isn't there?
Absolutely. We are trying to raise that conscience, raise that logic, and say to them... The
show tonight, Thank you for being with us, and really it's something to think about, what Daniel has shared with us tonight. Thank you.